If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future, they know that the youth...
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, there's no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that, Mr. Speaker.
It's too bad that minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday, because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears all of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that has built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Canada know that this government has their back. It will continue. There's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest and telling Canadians.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
There, that's much better. Ah. Welcome to the NAP, the no answer period, where we cover the question period prefaced by a review of the far left evil that has beset our land and the events that surround it, which is all the idiocy that the Liberals keep doing to our country. The NAP precedes the question period by 45 minutes, and we'll cover the lower house until the government decides to stop showing up. We also keep score. During the question period, we keep score of their questions being asked. We keep score of the freebie questions, the self-licking ice cream cone questions that Liberals like to ask themselves. In fact, my own MP has asked 3 of those questions himself. They're usually like, oh, please, Minister, tell us how wonderful you are and how wonderful the things you are doing make Canada so much more wonderful, something to that effect. Except the second time that he was talking, I think he was announcing something related to the military, because, of course, we have 8 Wing here in Quinte West, which is a large contributor to the local economy. And he was talking about how they were doing something, and he was acting like, as if, you Conservatives couldn't do anything like that, but we did that. Well, let's just ignore the complete destruction they've done to the Canadian Armed Forces overall, but yeah, they did that. Yeah, so anyways, we are streaming on 3 platforms, Rumble, X, and YouTube, which we sometimes call CommieTube. I'd like to thank my followers and subscribers for following and subscribing. And if you're new, please like, thumbs up, follow, shares, and subscribe. And most of all, the chat is up. Looking at it over here, and apparently it should be taking chats from all 3 platforms. It's a wonderful thing that Rumble Studio has going here. Most of all, please feel free to ask anything, and comments drive the algorithm. So if you're watching this and it's on repeat after being streamed, please leave a comment. It drives the algorithm when I'm not driving it down with my words. All right, well, you just saw the intro, and of course we've been separating the intro from all the other stuff that we've been adding, which we are now just calling Occam's Razor No Answer Period Supplements, or NAP supplements. So let's go into a supplement now, and which is just a little snippet from yesterday's question period. And this one here, we decided to snip Well, you'll see the topic.
Moms want to feed their own children, and they should be able to afford baby formula. So will they end their inflationary spending so moms can afford baby formula? Prime Minister said to judge him on the price at the grocery store. Well, nowhere is his failure more evident than baby formula. According to StatsCan, since 2017, baby formula has gone up by 84%. After 10 years of Liberal governments, desperate families are relying on Facebook groups and even buying opened cans of baby formula for their children. Why is the Prime Minister increasing inflationary spending and making baby formula more expensive?
The Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality, Small Business and Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, our government recognizes that in order to build a strong economy, we need to ensure that women and girls are safe and have the tools that they need to support and thrive. That's why our government is investing $660.5 million over 5 years, with $131 million ongoing. This includes stable funding to prevent gender-based violence, strengthen women's economic security, and support equality across Canada. Mr. Speaker, when the Conservatives were in power, what they did was gutted women and gender equality at 40%, which saw the closure of 12 regional offices. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we understand that when we invest in women, we are going to...
The Honourable Member for Fort McMurray Cold Lake.
Moms want to feed their own children, and they should be able to afford baby formula. If their programs were working, we wouldn't have 1 in 3 kids at food bank lines every single month. We wouldn't have 700,000 kids every single month in food bank lines, and we would not have baby formula as the #1 stolen food product in Canada. This is because of their failure. So will they end their inflationary spending so moms can afford baby formula?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've taken action to fight food insecurity. Part of the solution is working with our provinces and territorial and Indigenous partners to ensure 400,000 more children get nutritious meals at school every year. That is why this budget will make the National School Food Program permanent. In Canada, no child should wonder at school where their next meal is coming from. When members opposite talk about food insecurity, they should start by voting for the budget.
I'm going to give the member a little more time, but she finished her answer, I guess. The Honourable Member for Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, while families in Kitchener are increasingly using food banks at alarming rates, this government had a chance to lower food prices by scrapping the standard fuel tax. Instead, they chose to increase it by another 17 cents. This increases things like coffee, already up 34%, and beef up 16%. Why does this Prime Minister seem so determined to drive Canadians into poverty by ignoring skyrocketing food prices while he enjoys a luxury lifestyle hidden from the consequences of his own policies?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
Speaker, last week we came to an agreement with Ontario to continue our work on affordable childcare in that province and all across the country, Mr. Speaker. Families are saving money. But don't take it from me, Mr. Speaker. Listen to this parent from Andrew Fleck Children's Services. We've been able to have healthier meals at home, start saving for post-secondary education. Another parent said we were able to buy a house because of the child care fee reduction. It's made a monumental difference in our lives. Mr. Speaker, if they want to help families, why don't they vote for our budget?
The Honourable Member for Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, in typical Liberal fashion, fashion, I asked a question on food and I got an answer on childcare, but I'm going to ask again. Why is the Prime Minister not only refusing to scrap the fuel standards tax that's driving up food prices, but actually increasing it? This will drive up the cost to grow the food, package the food, and deliver the food across this country. Does he want groceries to be a luxury item because luxury is the only thing that he knows, while everyday Canadians can't afford to put food on the table?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family Affairs.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I guess she wasn't listening to this parent from Andrew Fleck Children's Services who said, we've been able to have healthier meals at home and start saving for post-secondary education.
Wow.
But another mother, Mr. Speaker, from the same child care services said, I would have had to quit my job and become a stay-at-home mom, and we would not have been able to afford child care at previous prices. And go, oh, Mr. Speaker, yeah, I know they don't really like seeing women in the workforce, but this mom talked about
the honourable member for Portneuf. The honourable.
Was the member finished? I think. No. I thought the member was finished. And the member had like about 4 seconds left. I mean, if the member wants to take 4 seconds. 4 seconds.
coverage that her job afforded. So not everybody has the luxury, Mr. Speaker, to stay at home.
Where are my cameras? There we go. And I just realized I was yapping there and the bloody mic wasn't on. Wonderful. Thanks for hanging out anyway, knowing that I'll probably figure it out. Yes. All right, let's get right into it. So, first off, we had something weird show up in our solar system. I just thought I'd show you this. Well, we're talking about multiple pictures, multiple exposures, and it's not the first one. There's been other pictures as it was coming into our system. Is it Planet X? Is it doing its 6,300 year cyclical rotation? Is it a trans-Neptunian body coming through our system? We don't know, but it's out there. And for some reason, NASA has been scrubbing the pictures. People have been grabbing the pictures when they can. They go back to look for them and they're gone. So something's up. It's always good to know that we need to have a larger picture on things sometimes instead of just getting all wrapped up in our own little world and our own little things. Even though we have to live here in Canada with the fluttery that is going on. All right, let's get into this quick little thing here. Online, of course, now the budget is passed. There are basically two groups of people on the conservative side, ones that are lamenting the fact that a budget didn't pass, and the other ones that are saying, yeah, we know it needs to pass because Canadians need to feel more pain. Because still too many of them are still supporting the Liberals after 10 years of misery. After 10 years of destroying the economy, after 10 years of spending uncontrollably and adding $1 trillion to the debt, more than all other prior governments combined. Now here's this little David Brown here, and if you go to him, you'll see he's a principal. So it's horrible that we have so many people like this in our education system teaching our kids. Principal, creative director of Orbit Studios. Is he really a principal, like a school principal? Like, why would somebody say they're a principal? Anyway, the party has lost its way when feeding kids is the big issue they focus on. Modern conservatism is mainly about cruelty. That's the typical binary thought pattern of somebody on the far left, whereby they can only think about one thing at a time, or maybe two ideas at a time, but that's about it. After that, their brain kind of breaks. Right? So they think that when the conservatives are complaining about feeding kids, the state feeding kids, it's about the entire scope of things. What the hell is the state doing feeding kids in the first place? Oh, because the state destroyed the economy and people are no longer allowed to feed their kids anymore. And that's why we don't want the state feeding kids. We want people to be able to allow to feed their kids. Now, that's fine. Provinces can set up their own food school lunch program or the various boards. That's up to them. People want to sign on to that. And, and if they're paying local education taxes, as we all do in our different municipalities where we get to choose the school board. And if there's a school board that has a free lunch program, hey, as a taxpayer, be like, you know what? That'd be nice. I think I'll support the kids for that. Or I can be like, no, I really can't afford that. I'm going to move my taxes over to the other school that I prefer. Anyway, it should be up to the local community. It shouldn't be out of our pocketbooks, out of the entire country to feed a handful of kids. And then, of course, the Liberals act like it's their money. Oh, you people are cruel. You won't let us feed the kiddies. Yeah, well, how did they get there, buddy? How did they get there? All right, so let's catch up on the ostrich issue. David Creighton has talked to Katie. It's a really horrible time for her and for a lot of people who are watching it, but not as horrible as it has been for the farmers. And she will be setting up. She wants to set something up to help farmers. Justice for the Ostriches, I think it's called. Anyways, they're working on it. And Chris Dacey sent me a video, latest video from the farm. So let's have a look at that.
Hey, Daisy here with Katie Pisitny of Universal
Morning.
Ostrich Farms. What day is it?
It's Miracle Monday.
So, breaking news for Miracle Monday.
Our charges were dropped. I mean, I would only and could only hope so, because I know that we were expecting a pretty great turnout on Thursday, and I want to thank everybody for lining up to come to the Vernon Courthouse. But we just got notified this morning that the charges for my mom and I both have been dropped. Those charges, just to remind everybody, were getting arrested for feeding the animals that got brutally murdered on November 6th and 7th. And we were feeding the animals. We wanted to keep their routine the same. Well, their world was going to be turned upside down. And on September 22nd, the day before they arrived, we got an email asking us to feed and water the animals. So it was very contradictory, but I just I'm very grateful for today, and we're ready to put our armor back on, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely.
We're putting our armor back on, and we're ready for round 2.
Yeah,
and that's going to be for everyone.
Thank goodness you had that email, and I guess, I mean, that goes to show that they don't want even this getting to the first court date. What they've done is so egregious that they're trying to, I guess, damage control early.
If we can arrest a mother and daughter for feeding their animals,
and lure you to do it.
And lure us to do it and told us that we could. What do we do? What do we have? I mean, right now, I think we're all questioning a little bit in Canada what is going on in Canada. But we just want to give you our commitment that this is not over. Our fight has a new fight's begun. And this is about the ostriches, obviously, the justice for the ostriches. But this is about making Canada a better place again for all of our families, our children and our grandchildren, and security in our property, security in our food, security in our rights. And so we've got our armor back on for Monday, and we're ready to go again.
Yeah, that's great news. And maybe we'll sit down soon and we can talk more about the big plans that are coming forward and where you'll be going from there. But that's awesome news. Miracle Monday.
Miracle Monday. And remember, we are all grieving right now. Yeah. And so as much as I say it's Miracle Monday, behind this is many moments of breaking down, many moments of crying. And the 4 walls of our homes still feel the safest. Going down that laneway to see those empty pens is still not comfortable and won't be for probably years. But it is a trigger. And so if you are experiencing trauma and emotions and you just don't know how to deal with these emotions, please reach out to a friend, reach out to a counselor, reach out to a loved one, and please support each other. It is okay to be feeling this way. This is natural. What Canadian Food Inspection Agency did on November 6th and 7th, it affected a lot of people, and not just in Canada, but across the world. So there is a Universal Ostrich support page that someone began, and I really think it's a beautiful idea. But if you need anything, please lean on each other, because this was one of the most traumatic events, and we need to just really be okay with understanding that we're not alone, and we're with you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Katie.
Questions from the gallery.
Yeah.
Back on? Mic back on. There you go. So that's the update. Just because this is how the Liberals think. Ask them. They won't know what a woman is. So as we know, the budget came out, and the PBO, was it the PBO or was it somebody else? The former PBO. Anyways, I think it was the PBO. He had said, well, in this particular part of the budget, if they actually adhere to that and they meet those targets, then yeah, there's a little bit good there. But overall, they left that part out. A little overall, right? They don't left that part out. So in question period, the Liberals would quote that, not little period. But of course, they leave this out here. Of course, that the Qualified Canadian Journalism Organization would never cover, right? Because that might bite the fee that hands them. So let's see what Kelly has to say.
Quote. Specifically, Mr. Jakes has indicated that he has been stonewalled in respect to requests about budget measures, specifically the so-called Comprehensive Expenditure Review, addressed to 5 ministers of the Crown, namely the Minister of Fisheries, Minister of Health, Minister of Public Safety, Minister of Justice, and the Minister of Industry.
I have a question for you. Which one is the real me? Is it me or is it me? All right, yeah, I'm the real.
Now, I will note on October 30th in the Operations Committee, the President of the Treasury Board, when questioned on this, stated he would provide the information to the PBO. And again, he has not. Parliamentary budget officers mandated by Parliament, among other things, to analyze budgets tabled in the House by the Minister of Finance. In the course of doing just that for the budget tabled on November 4th, he wrote to our ministers specifically requesting information concerning, quote, the savings of the CER, the Comprehensive Expenditure Review, by program, planned personnel reductions, the details of potential service level impacts of the years 2026, 27 to 2029, 2030, end quote. The Comptroller General of Canada answered on behalf of the ministers that the information will not be provided on the timelines required by the Parliamentary Budget Officer. Again, I go back to October 30th in the Operations Committee when the President of the Treasury Board assured the committee that that information would be provided. It remains to be seen if the information will ever be shared with Mr. Jakes, especially in light of news that the government launched a job posting for a new Parliamentary Budget Officer. But I digress, Madam Speaker. Mr. Jakes' letter explained the importance of this information being provided in a timely manner. Quote, the comprehensive expenditure reviews proposed cuts of $60 billion over the next 5 years are an important aspect of the government's economic and fiscal plan outlined in Budget 2025. Given that parliamentarians will be asked to vote on this plan next week, which is tonight in fact, I'm seeking your support to compel the Comptroller General of Canada to release the necessary information without delay. Timely disclosure is essential to ensure parliamentarians can engage in a fully informed debate on these significant measures. To meet this objective, I kindly request your response to this letter at your earliest convenience.
So the Liberal government has had a habit over the past 10 years of continually hiding information and refusing to release it. I guess the biggest one would be what happened in June of 2024 when the SDTC documents, which we still have not seen, were ordered to be released, and the Liberals did, almost completely redacted. So they were asked to release it again. They brought this to the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House said, yes, in committee, you were ordered to provide these documents. You must order them. It's an order paper. Produce the documents. And they refused. So the Speaker said, well, until you produce the documents, you're not allowed to have any business proceed in the lower house until this order is satisfied. So we sat around. We sat around from June till the election in April with no business being passed in the lower house. And any business that was being passed got stopped, which was fine for us because a lot of the fluttery that was going on with the bills that we see today was actually trying to be passed last time. Not as many issues as we have now with the bills, but back then they were doing it as well. So when all those bills died, that kind of gave us a bit of a breather. And of course, things just got worse along the year, right? And then it looked like the Conservatives were going to win, and then they replaced with elbows up moron, and now everybody thinks he's a great guy while he just keeps spending even more than the last moron. Excuse me for using the word moron. I should really be using Prime Minister moron. But here we have yet another example. Now, will this elevate itself to an order being submitted by the Speaker to the House to say, hey, Liberals, make sure this information gets to the PBO? Now, of course, we can see the Liberals have already kind of preempted this by saying, oh, if we could just replace this guy, maybe the next guy won't ask for it. Except I think the ask has already been made, so I don't think you can erase it. Unless, of course, the new PBO comes in and says, yeah, all those last asks, we don't need them. I'm fine. I'm fine with the way they're spending. No, don't bother me with spending money that's not mine, right? Let's just spend. Let's get on to the next little story. Sorry about that. I still had the scene playing. It's a little distracting. Oh, this is not right. What's going on here? There we go. Last week, with the budget being passed, the week before, well, being brought forward in the House, you'd think the press would be talking about the budget, but no. The press last week was mostly centered around the opposition party or the opposition leader. Anything to do with the opposition, absolutely anything and everything to do with anything but the budget was really what the press was on about. Now, of course, we have been looking at the press constantly, and as a reminder, once again, that's right, they're all qualified Canadian journalism organization. That means that by de facto, they're paid by the government, which means they must keep the government happy. And the CBC, oh my God, they're almost as bad as the BBC when it comes to lying and propaganda. But if you just look at the mainstream media news, there's hardly anything in there about the budget, and certainly nothing about Kelly asking for information on behalf of the PBO. Sarah CBC Watcher, clear CBC false reporting. Watch CBC senior reporter Marina von Stackelberg present a selectively edited version of Poilievre's answer below. It deliberately removes his criticism of CBC's correction, which, anyone who doesn't watch CBC has already seen online. She also lies. Poilievre did not directly answer questions about his leadership or whether or not he was afraid that more conservatives would be leaving. Poilievre clearly answers the questions with a no, the 2:15 mark. On the video below, CBC's editing and reporting on this whole topic has been deeply flawed and deliberately misleading. In addition to d'Entremont's lies that they continue to cover for, we now have CBC lying about Poilievre's answer. Let's watch the video.
And continued to. His office also alleged that d'Entremont left the Conservatives because he was upset that he had. His office also alleged that d'Entremont left the Conservatives because he was upset that he hadn't gotten a deputy speaker position, and they have called him a liar. Now, d'Entremont says he had been thinking of leaving the Conservatives for some time, in part because of Pierre Poilievre's leadership style. He said it felt like being in a frat house rather than a serious political party. So fast forward to today, Poilievre in front of a microphone, able to be asked about some of these accusations, some of these comments that d'Entremont has made about his leadership and his party. Have a listen to some of his response.
Well, first of all, I just quote Mr. d'Entremont, who said, and I quote, "Since I first elected here in 2019, the cost of living has skyrocketed, and it is unacceptable. It is inhumane for a G7 country," said Mr. d'Entremont of Liberal Policies. He said, "We are a rich country. We are a food basket of a country. We can produce all the food for many people in the world, and we can barely feed ourselves for some reason," end quote. That is how Mr. d'Entremont described the outrageous cost of living as the direct result of Mark Carney's Liberals.
What he's reading there is comments that d'Entremont made in the House of Commons at the end of September. That is on the record. It is in the Hansard of d'Entremont openly criticizing the Liberals when he was still a Conservative MP, and this is less than 2 months before he joined the Liberal Party. Poilievre did not directly answer questions about his leadership or whether or not he was afraid that more Conservatives would be leaving. He instead continued to quote the comments that d'Entremont made less than 2 months before he left, and continued to kind of turn the questions back on reporters and criticize them for asking him about what had happened over the last week, which I again mentioned we have not had a chance to ask the Conservative leader about until today.
Aaron Collins, CBC. So Chris d'Entremont, just turning back to last week, said that your party is being run like a frat house. So I'm just curious what you think he means by that, and if you think
I think that CBC had to be. Are you with CBC, by the way?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay, right.
So I'm just curious if you think that could lead to more MPs leaving your caucus, and what you think he means by that.
Well, first of all, CBC has had to correct the falsehoods that they put into that story. So I encourage you to tell Canadians about the falsehoods you published and explain why you did that. But I would ask if you agree with Mr. d'Entremont, or you believe he was telling the truth when he said, and I'm going to quote, "Now, after 6 months under a new Prime Minister who promised financial discipline, Canadians are still waiting." He said that he would be judged by the cost at the grocery store. Well, Canadians are judging him, and they are not impressed. Since the Liberals came to power, food prices have risen 40%. We have heard.
Well, you can go find the rest of the video if you haven't seen it, but there you go. They're just constantly, they're editing the story in order to continue to fool Canadian citizens. It's disgusting. What's yellow journalism? It's exactly what we expect from the QCJO press. And I really think that they should have armbands when they walk out in public, when they're on duty. This qualified Canadian journalism organization, maybe a little QCJO across the arm there. Can't get them to tattoo it on their foreheads. Maybe some ball caps or some jackets with QCJO on the back. Little patch there that can be ripped off like Velcro, put on their anti-stab vest as well. Especially if they're going to go in there to deal with the society that they have created by aiding the government that pays their salary. And a little bit more here. A friendly reminder that Bruce Anderson ran Carney's Liberal leadership campaign. 47% of those on the right believe it's best to choose a new leader for the Conservative Party, which is a post here by Bruce Anderson. And here's Paul and Kawartha. His daughter worked in Trudeau PMO. He also part owner of National News Watch, a news aggregator that constantly pushes anti-conservative news and opinion pieces. Of course, they have a link there to his site, and here's CBC Watcher. Another regular reminder that Bruce Anderson is co-owner of the National News Watch, and without declaring his conflict of interest, has prominently displayed his Spark anti-Polyev push poll, not just once, but twice. Now we have to ask ourselves, is Bruce Anderson on the QCJO payroll? Right. Some news from the Now Media Group out in BC. Let's play a little bit of this at the beginning. Again, this is all related to the budget.
They will see and what they want them to see. So, they're definitely doing a great job of getting their messaging out there and repeating before it kind of comes to fruition. This was a little bit anticlimactic, I have to be honest. I was expecting, especially after the interview that Carney did last week following the budget, I was expecting that there would be a pipeline somewhere, somehow in all of this, and it did not come to fruition. It wasn't there. It wasn't even mentioned. I'll say that most of these are already projects that are underway, that are stuck in processes that have been created by this government or by provincial governments. It makes no sense to tout these as the ones that you're going to be moving forward on when they are already moving forward and they are stuck. I take the LNG second phase. That one's been sitting at financial investment or final investment.
Speaking of LNG, the U.S. just signed a major deal with India to provide them with liquefied natural gas that will provide 10% of their requirements for a billion plus people. Yeah, that's another deal that Canada could have had we, not decide to destroy our energy sector under the Liberals starting 10 years ago when Canadians went and elected Liberals in because you liked Trudeau's hair and you bought in with the press hating Harper and hating everyone who's conservative. Hate, 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 hate. Now you got to pay, 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 pay. And now you've lost on jobs, jobs, jobs.
As they call it, for probably 2 years now. The environmental's already been done. All of the planning's already been done, and right now it's not making sense for them to move forward, largely because the electrification aspects and how they're actually going to power this plant is not appropriate yet. So why he's touting these ones as the big these big projects for Canada, it really doesn't make sense. I have watched some of the economists kind of lapping it up and saying, yes, this is going to add to jobs and these are great projects. They would have always added to jobs and they would have always been great projects, but these are not new projects. And I don't want any of our viewers to be confused. These are all existing projects that have been on the books for years and years and years, and he should just get moving forward on them. I will say this, the one thing that I'm watching pretty carefully and that Jim, you and I've talked about ad nauseum is that, he really needed to create a vision forward for Canada. I think he's doing that. I think that is really the point of these projects. It's not really to get them moving forward, but it is to kind of say we are going to move forward with energy projects because most of these are either in the mining sector or in the
All right, this little thing about, Canada really needs a vision. Well, let's not forget, Canada had a vision 10 years ago in 2015. It was moving forward. The economy was continually growing. We had manageable immigration. We had investment in the country. We had a functioning armed forces and a functioning RCMP and a functioning border. Everything was running fine, and we had a budget surplus. Mind you, we were still dealing with a deficit. It's slowly paying that down, but there was still a budget surplus. And along came the Liberals, and they destroyed everything. Now, when we say, oh, Canada really needs a vision, it's not Canada needs a vision. Canada had a vision. The Liberals destroyed that future for Canada to enrich themselves and their friends, and this Brookfield budget will only continue to do the same thing. So as she's mentioned there, they're very glad about bringing up all these projects that have been stalled by liberal incompetence, and not just incompetence. In many cases, they've done it on purpose. They've done it on purpose to make life more expensive for Canadians. It's all part of their plan to destroy the economy and destroy the country so they can bring in their own authoritarian rules and legislation, which have currently been tabled in various bills that are in committee right now. So I'm not making this up. They've actually done this. If people would just look and read these things, it's right there for people to see. This is not a conspiracy. This is happening and unfolding before our very eyes. Now, let's listen to Michelle and proof he lied. We still have time here? Oh, yeah, we still got 4 minutes before the question period starts.
Just about a month ago, the Parliamentary Budget Officer. So, what is a Parliamentary Budget Officer? This role was created in 2006 under Stephen Harper to create accountability and transparency of how taxpayer money is spent. It is a non-partisan, high-profile role that keeps the government in check for deficits, debt, and spending of your money. Just about a month ago, Jason Jacques testified at Finance Committee giving a shocking and quite frankly horrifying testimony of the state of Canada's finances.
It should be very alarming, right? These are, I don't know, I think I used the words in French, and which the translators probably got really well, like stupefying, shocking, right? This is not, like, it's not a funny fiscal outlook. It's a really serious fiscal outlook. And we don't lightly use the word unsustainable, right? Like, unsustainable means you don't have the option of saying, maybe I'll wait a couple of years, I'll see how things go. It means if you don't change, this is done, right?
After that report was released, and it was very upsetting, I'm not going to lie. It was so bleak. Pierre Poilievre stood in the House of Commons and said to the Liberals, okay, this is what's going to happen. The Liberals are not going to let this guy keep his job.
And the Prime Minister made the appointment of the Parliamentary Budget Officer temporary, so that he could hold a sword over his head and threaten him if he speaks the truth about the financial mess the Prime Minister has made. That's what you remember? You know, to a government that doesn't know how to count, there is nothing more terrifying than a man armed with a calculator. And this Prime Minister wants to silence the Parliamentary Budget Officer from telling the truth about the fiscal mess that he has created under his watch. So will he, Mr. Speaker, legalize math, make the Parliamentary Budget Officer's position permanent, and tell us how big the deficit is?
Mark Carney said he was happy to work in collaboration with the opposition.
Mr. Speaker.
With respect to consultations on making the Parliamentary Budget Officer's position permanent, I look forward to speaking to the Leader of the Opposition, le chef de bloc,
the Leader of the Bloc Québécois,
of other parties in Parliament, so we have a consensus on that appointment. I welcome that opportunity. We will do it at this. Yes, because this is the new spirit, Mr. Speaker, the new spirit of collaboration that has been put forward.
Surprise! He didn't do any of that. In fact, he posted a job posting to get a new Parliamentary Budget Officer. Then Mark Carney released his radical, wild budget at $78 billion deficit, but he lied. He said, oh no, it's good. A lot of that investment is going into capital as opposed to just spending money. So for those of you who don't know, capital is like you give access to money to a business, they can then pay you back, but also they're going to contribute to the economy. It's a very, very big difference from just giving somebody money to repair something or build something that's not going to give back to the economy. So he lied. So he lied in his budget to tell you that the deficit is actually lower than it really is. He lied by $90 billion. And Jason Jacques revealed that. So he said, It's certainly not our place to judge which fiscal anchors the government uses, Jacques said. At the same time, the way in which the government went about this was certainly not transparent. That's a really polite way to say they lied. We've had this fiscal anchor for over 30 years, he added. Other jurisdictions look at the debt to GDP anchor and a declining level of debt to GDP as being the mainstay of fiscal anchors. It's something that the Liberal Party of Canada campaigned on in April. It was in their platform, and without any discussion whatsoever, this fiscal anchor was eliminated. Mark Carney lied to you to win. And that is, you cannot have a country that can move forward when you have a liar as the leader. Somebody who is taking our country off of a fiscal cliff. So this PBO, this gentleman who says he's absolutely going to apply for the job, is literally a hero right now because he is not parroting what the Liberals want him to say. He's telling the truth. He's telling the facts. And Pierre Poilievre called this out over a month ago. And this is why you see such a visceral attack on Pierre, because he tells the truth. And you have government subsidized media, so the Liberals are paying the media to parrot their messaging. This is what they're doing. They're putting people in positions to control the narrative, to control the messaging, so that you hear what they want you to hear, not the truth. This is it, guys. And so all I can tell you is independent media is soaring. They're probably going to come after us. But it's important for you to share this. It's important for you to know this. It's important for you to keep commenting, liking, and sharing, because we are able to pick that up and people are getting the facts outside of mainstream media and outside of Liberal talking points. So keep up the good work, and congratulations to this PBO for speaking the truth and the facts. It gives me hope that we can reverse this damage.
I don't think we're going to reverse anything as long as the Liberals are in power. And once they are removed, because eventually every government falls, it will take a decade to clean up the mess they've made, if not more. The amount of harm that they have done to the economy is astounding. The amount of people that have left this country. Prior to the Liberals getting elected in 2015, approximately 20,000 people, Canadians, would become expatriates, take their wealth, and leave the country and go live somewhere else. Mostly because of how expensive our taxes are. And mostly because a lot of people just can't really profit or make a go of a business in Canada as efficiently as they can. Now, a lot of mom and pop stores, small businesses were able to continue and thrive right up until the Liberals came into power. And then slowly but surely, they kept introducing legislation that make it more and more difficult. And finally, with the coup de grace that came with the COVIDity stupidity, and now look, here we are. We are starting the question period. So let's get into that.
More clear. They want opportunities that are hands-on, well-paid, and connected to the real needs. London West.
The honourable member for Elgin, St. Thomas, London South.
Mr. Speaker, I wish our high-flying Prime Minister coveted results as much as air miles. Since taking office, he's made 28 trips, flying 153,000 kilometers, which is enough to circle the globe 4 times. And he's off again this week, heading to the United Arab Emirates and then South Africa. No surprise from the Prime Minister, who collects passports like Pokemon and identifies as European when he's hanging out in Davos with his fellow global elites. But what do Canadians have to show for this? No trade deals, no tariff relief, just photo ops and hollow letters of intent. He blew past his own deadlines with the United States with no deal. His 8-day junket to Asia, no progress. Chinese tariffs stay, India adds new ones, and not a single tariff lifted on Canadian goods in 8 months. As for accountability, he has appeared in question period just 11 times this fall. If the Prime Minister is this bored of Canada, can he please make his next junket a one-way ticket?
The honourable member for Moody Coquitlam.
Community-led Salute Scholarship is and the foundation.
Canadians needed an affordable budget for an affordable life. Canadians can no longer pay their bills and pay for groceries. But the Prime Minister is creating more inflation. According to the PBO, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, the Prime Minister has created the largest deficit in Canadian history outside of the pandemic years. It's twice the deficit Justin Trudeau left us with. It's also twice as high as what the Prime Minister promised during the election campaign. That's a broken promise, according to the PBO. There will be $5,000 more inflation for each Canadian family. How are Canadians supposed to pay another $5,000 for a costly, expensive budget? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I'm so happy to see that the Leader of the Opposition read the summary of the budget, but we're not going to take any lessons from the Conservatives. Yesterday, the Conservatives voted against infrastructure investment. They voted against investing in housing. The Conservatives voted against innovation and productivity in Canada. And the Conservatives also voted against investing in defence. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we will always fight for a strong Canada. We will build a strong Canada together, Mr. Speaker. Today, the Conservatives should be asking themselves the question, why aren't we supporting Canadians? What are Canadians getting in exchange for the Prime Minister's 150,000 kilometers of travel? It's the equivalent of going around the earth 4 times. He met with Americans and they doubled tariffs on steel and aluminum. He met with people in India. They increased tariffs on chickpeas. He went to China. He met with them and they increased tariffs on Canadian farmers and fishermen, Mr. Speaker. So why is it that every time the Prime Minister takes a flight abroad to meet with foreign representatives, Canadians pay more tariffs? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, that's the question Canadians are asking themselves. They're wondering, how did the Conservatives dare to vote against Canada yesterday, Mr. Speaker? Because in our budget, Mr. Speaker, we address strengthening Canada's sovereignty. We invest in our military capacity. We are investing in our military. So how can Conservatives explain to their constituents that they voted against Canada yesterday at a
Let's not forget that these clowns cut $4.2 billion from veterans to give a $2 billion raise to the Canadian Armed Forces.
In Canadian history and put it all on the national credit card. The Parliamentary Budget Officer revealed the Prime Minister doubled Trudeau's deficits, added $16 billion more to the debt than he promised, is increasing the debt to GDP ratio, breaking another promise. $78 billion of additional debt works out to about $5,000 for every single cash-strapped family in this country. How does the Prime Minister expect single moms and seniors and small business people who can't pay their bills to pay another $5,000 for his inflation?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we will take no lessons from the Conservatives. Mr. Speaker, what they did yesterday under this leader, they voted against investment in infrastructure. Under this leader, they voted against investment in housing. Under this Conservative leader, they voted against productivity and innovation in our country. Under this leader, they voted against investment in our sovereignty, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we'll build a strong Canada, we'll empower Canadians, and we'll protect our sovereignty because we believe in Canada.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think anybody's been able to cram that many slogans into one answer, and this is coming from me. This is coming from me. Mr. Speaker, let's take housing. He says they're spending billions of dollars more on housing. The results are out today. Housing starts down 17% year over year. Where we need the most in Toronto, down 42% year over year. Vancouver, 36% year over year. Ontario, down 35%. And BC, down 22%. Why is it that the more Liberals spend, the less that we can build?
The Honourable Minister for Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well,
Leader of the Opposition is ignoring the year-to-date results. He's looking month to month. He's twisting the facts. He's getting confused in the numbers. Conservatives have a tough time with numbers sometimes. We understand that. Year-to-date, 2025 versus 2024, we are up 5% with housing starts.
Leader of the Opposition.
What are Canadians getting for the 28 trips, 150,000 kilometers, enough to circle the world 4 times that the Prime Minister's billed back to Canadians? Well, he met with the Americans, and they doubled tariffs on our steel, aluminum, autos, and tripled them on our forestry. He met with the Chinese, who increased tariffs on our farmers and fish harvesters. He met with the Indians. They increased tariffs on Canadian peas. He met the Brits, and they're keeping their blockade on our beef. Why is it that whenever the Prime Minister gets on a plane, Canadians end up paying more tariffs abroad?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Good news for Canadians. Germany just signed a $1 billion deal with Lockheed Martin Canada to support jobs right here in this country. This is what Canadians are getting from the Prime Minister being on the world stage, selling what Canada has to offer. It's about unlocking new markets and creating good jobs here in Canada.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
With the Prime Minister billing millions of dollars for his high-flying trips around the world, 28 trips, 150,000 kilometers, now is the time for a scorecard. The Americans have increased tariffs on Canadian autos, aluminum, steel, and lumber. The Indians have increased tariff on our peas. The Chinese increased it on our farmers, our fish harvesters. Now, allow me to introduce a comprehensive list of all the tariffs the Prime Minister has successfully had reduced on Canada.
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader continues to stand against support for Canadian workers and businesses. He has refused to support our government's plan to double non-U.S. exports over the next decade. In fact, he called Canadian exports, other than oil, pixie dust. Does the Conservative leader think our $5 billion in beef exports is pixie dust? Or the LNG headed to South Korea from BC? Or what about the $7.6 billion worth of fish and seafood caught by hardworking Canadians? Why there's imaginary taxes or pixie dust, the Conservative leader needs to get on board and out of the way, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, last week, Québécois announced that it will be laying off 87 workers in their media division. In fact, over the past 2 years, nearly 800 TVA employees have lost their jobs. This is devastating for Quebec's culture and for the diversity of information in Quebec. Quebec's largest private TV station is on the brink of collapse, and Ottawa is doing nothing. Ottawa prefers to watch our TV station die a slow death. How many more people need to be laid off for this government to wake up? The Honourable Minister of Identity and Canadian Culture. Mr. Speaker, our thoughts go out to families and communities affected by these layoffs. My Bloc Québécois colleagues' question would be more relevant if the Bloc Québécois had not voted for the most significant budget in Canadian history, which, if they had voted for it, they should have voted for it because we have credits to support journalism. They have voted against money for local journalism in Quebec and everywhere in Canada, so it's incomprehensible, Mr. Speaker. It makes no sense. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, can you imagine how the people at TVA are interpreting the message the Liberals are sending them? The Liberals say, we're making historic investments in culture, but there's not a penny in it for you lot. You lot, you can disappear for all we care. That's the Liberals' message to TVA. And these same Liberals were the only ones who refused to take part in a debate on TVA, which was asking for money because it didn't have any left. TVA broadcasts our music and our stories. TVA sparks discussion and debate. Quebecers identify with TVA, but Ottawa doesn't give a damn. What does Ottawa have against our television? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, in the budget, which the Bloc Québécois voted against, there is $150 million for Radio-Canada CBC. which is the most significant culture producer in Quebec. They voted against it. There's $26 million for the National Film Board, which is in Montreal, Mr. Speaker. They voted against that. There's $127 million for the Media Fund, $48 million for the Music Fund. They voted against all of those initiatives in the budget for culture in Quebec and everywhere in Canada, and that's outrageous, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Drummond. There's nothing for private broadcasters in the budget, though, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, in order to please the almighty American president, the Prime Minister decided to scrap the digital services tax. The revenue from the digital services tax could have been used to create a fund to support the culture and information sector in the long term, with support for TVA, which is in dire need of it. Not only did the Liberals refuse to create such a fund, but they did absolutely nothing to secure the future of private television in Quebec and Canada. Why have the Liberals abandoned private broadcasters? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, just like my colleague who just listed our commitments, my colleague listed our commitments to culture and to the media in our budget. I, like my colleague, don't understand that the Bloc Québécois, they've been calling for ports, they've been calling for quays in Saguenay, landing strips for airports. They want investments in major projects. They want health and housing funding in Quebec. Then what do? They voted against all of that. Why doesn't the Bloc Québécois stand with the Liberals in voting for Quebec and supporting Quebec?
Honourable Member for Calgary East.
Prime Minister's costly credit card budget puts today's reckless spending on tomorrow's taxpayers. He's maxing out Canada's credit card. Watchdogs are exposing the Liberals' accounting tricks. Fitch and the budget watchdogs say Canada's credit score is at risk because the Liberals always break their own made-up fiscal targets. How many more fiscal watchdog reports is it going to take for this Prime Minister to finally rein in his costly credit card spending?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, I got some advice for the leader opposite. He should go back in his lobby and push reboot on Chat CPC, because all it does is rehash the same tired old talking points. Last night, Mr. Speaker, this House passed a generational budget. We're going to invest in infrastructure, in defense and housing. We will transform this country from reliance to resiliency. It's too bad the members opposite didn't support us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary East.
The CRA's a mess under that guy, and he's trying out to be a comedian in here. The budget watchdog exposed the Liberals' shady accounting tricks. He said Liberals have a less than 8% chance of meeting their own fiscal targets that they made up while trying to hide $100 billion under so-called investments. The Prime Minister tried this trick in the UK. He's trying the same trick on Canadians. Instead of cooking the books to hide his $100 billion ego, why doesn't he just rein in his out-of-control, costly credit card spending?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, they want to talk about slogans and quoting slogans. They quoted the food professor so much, you think it was the leader's personal chef, serving up the same tired old leftovers time and time again. Last night, we passed a generational budget that will transform this country. It's too bad the party opposite didn't support our budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Barrie South, Innisfil.
I have to pause at this point because it's just becoming so obvious. The Liberals, I've never seen a session so bad in Parliament where the Liberals, in this case the far left, continually denigrate and insult the opposition. I mean, they're not even being smart about it. They're not even being funny. Like, at least the Conservatives will ask something specific, or the little presentation that Pierre did there with a blank paper of list of accomplishments. That was pretty funny. But all the Liberals can do is accuse and call them names and act like petty little children in a schoolyard. It's absolutely disgusting.
Thanking their lucky
marquee stars that we have a parliamentary budget officer whose job it is to be independent and honest about the state of government deficits, debts, and spending. The budget watchdog last week called out the creative accounting in the Prime Minister's credit card budget, saying he's using a definition of capital investment that expands beyond the current treatment in public accounts and international practice. In other words, the Prime Minister is cooking the books, and his out-of-control deficit is pouring more gas on the debt and deficit fires. How many more alarms must go off for the Prime Minister to rein in his spending from his credit card budget?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
This budget is a game changer for families across the country. Whether it's the school nutrition program, which I know these Conservatives like to talk down, that's feeding hungry mouths in my riding of Thunder Bay Superior North and all across the country, or early learning and childcare program that's reducing fees. Listen to this, Mr. Speaker. ELCC has taken a huge mental and financial load off our family, particularly during these times. That's from a parent, Mr. Speaker. You can't beat that.
Honourable Member for Barrie South Innisfil.
And what's the Liberal response to the interim PBO's warnings? They put him on notice that they'll be looking to replace him with someone who has, quote, tact and discretion. Presumably that means replacing the budget watchdog with someone from the Prime Minister's inner circle of corporate buddies who take their marching orders from him. The independence and oversight of the budget watchdog is designed to call out the deception and raise the alarms to ensure that every MP and Canadian knows when the books are being cooked. Here's a question. Why is it that the watchdogs who are challenging the wolves on this credit card budget being threatened?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, of course there's a well-worn process for appointment of the Parliamentary Budget Officer, which involves consulting with all members of this House, including the Leader of the Opposition. We look forward to the members' feedback on that very important job search.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Lisette-Chemin-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister's credit card budget is a bill that he is passing on to our children. After 10 years of this government, families are struggling and have to put 50% more of their expenses on their credit cards just to get by, Mr. Speaker. Meanwhile, the rating agency Fitch says that federal finances are at a high risk of deterioration because the Liberals are constantly spending beyond their own limits. Will Fitch's opinion convince the Prime Minister to stop his reckless and irresponsible spending? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Mr. Speaker, it's interesting to hear the Conservatives during question period. It's not surprising that Quebecers and Canadians rejected a party leader who spends all his time drafting cute sentences for question period, but doesn't have a real plan to build up Quebec and Canada. We will invest in defense, for example. That will support good jobs at the Davie Shipyard. There will also be investments in Basecamp Connect in Quebec, which manufactures systems for the Canadian Armed Forces. Those are some examples of what the Conservatives voted against yesterday, and it's really unfortunate. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse is Lisette-Chemin-Lévis. Are they trying to tell us that Fitch and the Parliamentary Budget Officer are liars, Mr. Speaker? In fact, in the Parliamentary Budget Officer's latest report, the PBO confirms that the government has abandoned its key financial limits for reducing debt, and the PBO warns that this directly threatens Canada's credit rating and investor confidence. So, how many more alarming reports from the Parliamentary Budget Office will it take before this Prime Minister finally puts an end to the financial disaster? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's important that we underscore that Canada has the best fiscal situation of all G7 countries, and we have the lowest debt-to-GDP ratio in the G7 as well. We are in a time of great economic change, which calls for ambition and serious work. That's exactly what Budget 2025-2026 does. We're investing in defense, we're investing in productivity, innovation, in the middle class. That's what Budget 2025 is, Mr. Speaker. That's what it's all about.
After 10 years of Liberal deficits, Canadians are having to put nearly 50% more of their expenses on credit cards. Fitch Credit Ratings, the agency that gives the Liberal government its credit score, says the Liberal government is frequently blows through fiscal anchors. On top of this, the Parliamentary Budget Officer is also ringing the alarm bells. Quote, with Budget 2025, the government abandoned the previous fiscal anchor to reduce federal debt-to-GDP ratio over the medium term. My question is, how many more fiscal watchdog reports is it going to take for the Prime Minister to rein in his costly credit card spending?
That's right.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let's look at some facts. I know the party opposite doesn't really like to talk about facts. Best credit rating in the world. Lowest net debt to GDP in the G7. The IMF has projected Canada to have one of the fastest growing economies in the G7. Mr. Speaker, we are laser focused on building the strongest economy in the G7. Mr. Speaker, the party opposite talks slogans and rhetoric and outdated slogans, but Mr. Speaker, we're focused on building the strongest economy. Mr. Focus, we will deliver for Canadians because that's what Canadians expect from a serious government. Thank you.
L'honorable député de Jonquière.
The honourable member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, here's the proof that the budget does not meet Quebecers' needs. Yesterday, the very day the budget passed, the forestry company Arbeck in Amos laid off nearly 100 workers. Yet, just 3 short weeks ago, the forestry industry was in Ottawa to ask for support. Arbeck was there too. The industry urged the federal government to advance them 50% of all future countervailing and anti-dumping duties payable. They also demanded a wage subsidy to avoid having to lay off their workers. The budget ignores the forestry industry, and as a result, what do we have? 100 workers are losing their livelihoods. What is the government waiting for to take action? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for his question. We will always be there for forestry workers. We have a fund which is there just to help businesses. But yesterday, guess what happened? Quebecers voted, the Bloc Québécois voted against projects in Quebec. They voted against expanding the Saguenay port and expanding the Montreal port. They voted against a pavilion for sharks. They're against that. They're against the Florian shipyard. They are against development in Montreal North. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers can't understand what they're doing today. Where was the Bloc Québécois yesterday to support them? The honourable member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Mr. Speaker, our hearts go out to the 100 Arbeck workers in Amos who have been laid off. The company had no choice. Why? Because Ottawa ignored the needs that the forestry industry and the Bloc Québécois have been insisting on for weeks. A wage subsidy is needed in order to avoid layoffs like these. And for the industry in general, the federal government must advance 50% of the American countervailing and anti-dumping duties. The Liberals did nothing in their budget, and now 100 families have found out that they'll be spending the holidays in financially vulnerable situations. What's the government going to do for these people? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, the Bloc Québécois was very busy voting against the budget and against development and projects in Quebec. But we have some news for them, Mr. Speaker. We're already talking to Arbeck. We are already negotiating a line of credit for them. We are here to support them, to help them transition, Mr. Speaker, to help them get through this. The Bloc Québécois, rather than vote against projects for Quebec, they should work with the government so that together we can build our country better and stronger.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's costly credit card budget puts today's reckless spending onto tomorrow's taxpayers. After 10 years of these Liberals, Canadians are having to put nearly 50% more of their expenses on their credit cards. The Fitch credit rating says that federal finances run a high risk of further deterioration since this government frequently blows through its fiscal anchors. How many more fiscal watchdog reports is it going to take for this Prime Minister to rein in his costly credit card spending?
Good question. The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, as a proud member from Southern New Brunswick, like the member opposite, I believe in this budget we passed last night. That budget has transformational, generational investments in defense, in infrastructure. There is a $5 billion trade corridor fund that will be an amazing amount of dollars for Port St. John and Port Belledoon. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we listen to Canadians. We believe in our budget. We know our budget will transform Canada. It's too bad the members opposite didn't support us last night. I know Canadians stand with us. We will.
The honourable member for Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, this member knows that his constituents and mine are struggling to make ends meet, and it's this government's reckless spending that's making matters worse. Not only is Fitch credit ratings warning that Canada's economic position is at risk of getting worse, thanks to the Liberals' disregard for sticking to their own fiscal anchors, the Parliamentary Budget Officer is also warning that this deterioration is already taking place, and Canadians are the ones paying the price. It's no wonder that this Prime Minister wants to fire the Parliamentary Budget Officer, because he's actually telling Canadians the truth. And the truth, Mr. Speaker, hurts. So I'll ask again, how many more fiscal watchdog...
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, that member is an experienced member, so experienced, in fact, he was here for that 10-year river of Harper red ink, the biggest budget deficits on record in the history of the country. And it's funny, he wasn't talking about that then. And what he's done now is he's voting against a budget that creates opportunity right throughout Atlantic Canada, right through...
Steve McKinnon is the biggest, slimiest liar in Parliament. Look at this face, right? He doesn't care. He would steal candy from a child. Let's not forget, the Liberals have added $1.02 trillion, so $1 trillion and $2 billion to the deficit since they've been in power in 2015, adding more debt to the country than all other prior governments combined. So when this dick says things about the Harper government and their red ink, notice how he just doesn't mention the fact that they've added $1 trillion black hole to the debt of Canada that is costing us $10 million per hour in interest charges. Yes, Steve McKinnon, you're a filthy, lying butterbugger.
throughout the province of New Brunswick that creates opportunity for young people in New Brunswick, in energy, in infrastructure. We're going to keep building this country despite that member, his history of red ink, and his negativism.
The Honourable Member for Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup, Katiskomik-Témiscouata. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's deficitary budget passes the buck to tomorrow's taxpayers. At the same time, Canadians are stuck with nearly 50% more spending on their credit cards. Fitch, the credit rating agency, has warned that there's a high risk that federal finances will deteriorate further. The PBO adds that borrowing costs will rise. Mr. Speaker, how many more reports from the fiscal watchdog will it take before this Prime Minister stops his irresponsible spending? The Honourable Secretary of State. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we're investing to build families and strong communities. Our investment in this budget will create jobs and quality careers for young people. It'll protect the supports that help families advance. At the same time, our government is delivering a budget that will grow Canada and strengthen it. I encourage the members across the aisle to vote in favor of our budget this afternoon.
St. John, St. Croix.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of Liberal mismanagement, Canadian families are putting 50% more of their household bills on credit cards than just 10 short years ago because of Liberal inflationary spending. Fitch rating warns that the government overspending puts finances at high risk of further deterioration. The budget watchdog warns Liberals have abandoned their own debt-to-GDP anchor, which is key to preserving Canada's AAA credit rating. No wonder the Prime Minister, this costly Prime Minister, is trying to fire anyone who can use a calculator in this place. When will the Prime Minister stop maxing out Canada's credit card and get back to basics?
The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada-US trade.
Mr. Speaker, like his colleague from Fundy Royal, that member would remember very well the time that he served in Prime Minister Harper's office, and they were overrun with credit card card spending and government cutbacks. They pretend to be interested in things now like the fight against crime, and they were cutting CBSA officers and underfunding the RCMP. And what did they do yesterday, Mr. Speaker? They voted against investments in his province, in my province of New Brunswick, in infrastructure that will build the strongest economy. We've got no lessons to take, as the finance minister said, from that member.
No lessons.
The honourable member for Yorkton Melville.
The Prime Minister's costly credit card budget loads today's reckless spending on tomorrow's taxpayers, while Canadians are having to put nearly 50% more of their expenses on their credit cards, fearing potential loss of their homes, businesses, and facing the threat of bankruptcy. If only this government was concerned. The warnings from Fitch and the Parliamentary Fiscal Watchdog are ringing alarm bells. Abandoning one fiscal anchor and replacing it with another is already failing to build investor confidence in Canada. How many more fiscal watchdog reports will it take for this Prime Minister to rein in his costly credit card spending?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Yesterday in this House, the Conservative Party voted against Budget 2025. They voted against
Not from the top, but the member can continue.
Those Conservatives voted against food in schools for children. They voted against an income tax cut for the middle class. They voted against $75 million in apprenticeship training. They voted against a refundable credit for personal support workers. They voted against $45 million to address violence against women, and they voted against crucial support for seniors like the old age security. Mr. Speaker, Canadians want to know who...
The honourable member for Rivière-des-Mille.
No. D'accord, allez-y.
Go ahead.
Speaker, Northern Ontario has a proud mining legacy. We are known across the globe as a mining powerhouse, and we are ready to lead in the clean economy. The Minister of Energy and Natural Resources visited our region last week, where he saw firsthand the real opportunities that Northern Ontario offers to our government's plan to grow our economy. Having major projects from Northern Ontario included on the list sends a clear signal that Northern Ontario is at the centre of Canada's critical mineral future. Can the Minister tell us what this means for the workers and local communities of our region?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for that question. The Crawford mine will help anchor Canada's leadership in clean industrial materials. It will supply high-grade, low-carbon nickel for batteries and green steel, with projected emissions close to 90% lower than the global average, while creating 1,000 direct jobs and 3,000 indirect jobs over the 40-year mine life. This is an example of acting decisively, building stronger, more reliant Canada, and getting projects built faster with the Major Projects Office.
The honourable member for Foothills.
This Liberal government is the most expensive in Canadian history, and every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pocket of hardworking Canadians, driving up the costs of everything. Food prices are 50% higher than the target rate, and experts have warned the Liberals the industrial carbon tax is driving up the cost, fertilizer, farm equipment, and food. Now, the Liberals like to say this tax is imaginary, but they're increasing their own imaginary tax in the budget. Is that what they tell parents of the 700,000 kids lined up at food bank, as you're imagining things? Why is the Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax when food is already unaffordable?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this budget meets the moment, speeding up national building projects, boosting trade diversification for agri-food and agriculture, for our economy, and those generations he speaks of to come. $150 billion in infrastructure alone in the plan, including trade corridors, agri-marketing, ag stability, clean fuel regulations, biofuel incentives, CFIA funding for digital trade, investments in can export, EDC, global affairs, all for trade diversification and growing agriculture, Mr. Speaker. And Buy Canada plan, Mr. Speaker, that's so important to all our agriculture farmers and ranchers out there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Foothills.
What this budget did was put intergenerational debt on Canadian families. But here's the fact that the minister just ignored entirely. Canada, food inflation in Canada is 40% faster and higher in Canada than it is in the United States. Canada is the only G7 country where food inflation has actually increased in 4 straight months. We have a record-shattering 2.2 million Canadians forced to a food bank in a single month. Why is the Prime Minister breaking his promise to Canadians, increasing an industrial carbon tax, increasing food costs for Canadians who already can't afford to put food on the table?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we all know the Canadian Climate Institute most recent research shows Canada industrial carbon pricing system have essentially no impact on households. Agriculture plays a significant role in their achievement, Mr. Speaker, to lead the G7 nations. We're going to stand alongside our growers, our ranchers, and our farmers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Battleford's Lloydminster.
This Liberal government is the most expensive in Canadian history. Every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians and drives up the cost of everything. The cost of baby formula has jumped nearly 84% since 2017, and the growing reports of parents going to desperate measures to feed their babies is truly alarming. Yet, when the Liberals had a chance to lower food costs, they chose to increase it. Why is the Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Rural Affairs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I just want to point out when it comes to the budget that Saskatchewan is watching. Saskatchewan is here, Mr. Speaker. For 10 years, those Sask Conservatives have voted against billions of dollars in project commitments and programs that would have helped my home province to move faster and build stronger. They did this just for their petty and immature political games. That ends today, Mr. Speaker, because this Saskatchewan MP is voting for the budget and voting for the interests of Saskatchewan.
The honourable member for Battleford, Lloydminster, Middle Lake.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal budget and those initiatives are not working. Parents are still struggling to afford baby formula under this Liberal government's watch. And now StatsCan is reporting another year-over-year increase of 6% on the price of baby formula. The Liberals had a chance to lower food costs for Canadians by scrapping the industrial carbon tax. But they chose to make food more expensive by increasing it. So I will ask again, why, when so many parents are struggling to feed their babies, is the Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Now, Mr. Speaker, I know they haven't developed a budget in the last 10 years, so they're a little out of practice, Mr. Speaker. But I'm going to ask them, what part of this budget would they cut? Would it be the RCMP Heritage Project? Would it be the thousands of houses that are going to commit to building in Saskatchewan? Would they shut down the nation-building mine in northern Saskatchewan? The $370 million in biofuels to benefit our canola farmers? Would they vote against $257.6 million for firefighting aircraft? Where would you cut? What would you sacrifice on Saskatchewan's behalf?
Once again, through the chair, please. The honourable member for Montmorency Charlevoix.
Mr. Speaker, I was in Château-Léger last week, and they talked about the industrial carbon tax, which increases the cost of energy, transportation, processing throughout the supply chain. And this leads to a 17% increase in beef prices for these clients. According to StatsCan, orange, apples, fruit juice, and coffee are also up by over 30%. 40% faster prices are rising here than in the U.S. The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Mr. Speaker, perhaps we could start by telling them that the industrial carbon price does not apply to Quebec. So perhaps you could look at this. But not only this, across the country, the price on industrial carbon is not increasing food prices. We have to show that we can continue to fight against climate change and support families across our country, and I hope that they will decide to help families as well. The honourable member for Montmorency Charlevoix. There's another tax. That's been invented. That's the carbon tax. And the Liberals had a chance to drive down food prices by eliminating this tax, but they chose to continue to make food even more expensive. At food banks in Quebec, we're seeing families and couples that each have jobs that are showing up to get food because they have to choose between having food, paying their rent, or having gas to drive their cars. It costs an extra 17% per litre every time they go to the pump. How come the Prime Minister is keeping his carbon tax, and continuing to make food more expensive? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, he had the opportunity to vote for a tax cut for 22 million Canadians. Yesterday, he had the opportunity to vote for a school food program for the most vulnerable young people in Quebec. He had the opportunity to vote for investment in housing and infrastructure, in transportation. Yesterday, he had the opportunity to invest in defense, to increase the salaries of our CAF members. He voted against, but good news. He can make up for this just after question period, support our Ways and Means motion, and perhaps take a walk behind the curtains like some of his colleagues did.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government is the most expensive in Canadian history. Every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians and is driving up the cost of everything. They could have lowered the food cost by scrapping the plastic packaging tax, which drives up the cost of produce by 34% and costs the average household $400. Instead, the Liberals chose to keep it. Why is the Prime Minister keeping this packaging tax and making food more expensive?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, why does the member opposite keep on choosing to make things up? There is no plastic packaging tax. Do you want me to repeat it for him, please? There is no plastic packaging tax. I wish that they would look at the facts, and I wish that they would work with us to continue to work for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Northumberland Clark.
Mr. Speaker, every dollar the Liberals spend comes out of the pockets of hard-working Canadians. Senior Liberal appointee Pierre Tremblay nearly doubled his former travel budget to allow him to spend thousands of dollars on unnecessary limo rides. Instead of asking young Canadians to sacrifice their future, why doesn't the Prime Minister ask one of his top bureaucrats to maybe sacrifice a limo ride here or there? Here.
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Speaker, what this government is doing is spending less so we can invest more. We've invested $60 billion in the first tranche of major projects, $57 billion in this tranche. This is creating jobs and making Canada stronger, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Northumberland Clark.
We hear that tired line from this government and the previous one. Canadians have never had it so good. But the reality is Canadians are struggling, families are struggling, workers are struggling. And yet this government keeps defending the indefensible. While Canadians are lined up in record number at the food banks, Liberal bureaucrats are living the Liberal life of luxury. Will this government take any disciplinary action against this individual? Maybe even curtail his travel budget?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, that agency is an independent agency. It does good work. It is helping us build a nuclear future for this country. We are building at Darlington. We are building at Pickering. We are building at Bruce. Mr. Speaker, we are building Canada strong.
The Honourable Member for Compton-Stanstead. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In regions, as we see in the eastern townships, we have media, local media, and francophone cultural institutes that allow us to live our culture. Today, in a digital world and globalization, our way of consuming culture is evolving. I'd like to ask the Minister of Culture and Canadian Identity how the government will protect and promote our diversity and cultural wealth that is our strength. The Honourable Minister of Identity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. In the face of global uncertainty, it is essential that we protect our cultural sovereignty and identity. And that's why, as part of our budget, we're investing historical amounts in cultural and identity, with $38 million for local media across our country. Our government is making a strategic choice to strengthen our cultural sector and our media sector, with millions in CBC Radio Canada and $65 billion this represents in GDP and nearly 670,000 jobs. We're investing in our future and preserving the stories told by Canadians.
For Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, extortions are out of control, up 330% across Canada and nearly 360% in Ontario since 2015. 2 weeks ago, a home in Windsor got sprayed with bullets in an extortion attack. As a former police officer, I know criminals are taking advantage of our weak bail laws and lack of tools for law enforcement. Canadians deserve safety, not excuses, Mr. Speaker. When will the Liberals get serious and support our concerted plan to crack down on rampant extortion and protect our communities? For God's sake, do something.
Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, we take extortion very seriously in Canada.
Right.
Extortion with a firearm carries a maximum sentence of life in prison, Mr. Speaker. But you know what? These extortionists think they're not going to get caught, and you know that's why that is, because we haven't given law enforcement the tools they need to catch extortionists. And those tools are in our C2 bill, Mr. Speaker, but except the Conservatives do not agree with that bill, and they will not give our police lawful access tools in order to catch these extortionists, so they know they're going to get away with it.
The Honourable Member for Cloverdale Langley City.
At a time when Canadians are being terrorized in their own neighbourhoods, our globe-trotting Prime Minister jet-setted into BC for a carefree stroll down the White Rock Pier. A stroll while families in Surrey are barricading their doors. A stroll while homes and businesses are being shot up for the second and third time. A stroll while a sunset stroll while gangs tell victims, give us 5 more names to extort or you're next. It's mind-boggling that he flew out to crack jokes on the pier instead of tackle extortion. Why won't they support the Conservative plan to crack down on extortion crisis?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have no plan. If they had a plan, they would support C-14. In C-14, we make sentencing for extortionists consecutive. C-14 also makes it harder for extortionists to get bail, Mr. Speaker. That's why it's so important that they support these measures. It's so important that they support C2. But, Mr. Speaker, I think they don't support it because that would mess up their fundraising plans.
So, these fucking clowns, man. They always talk about them not supporting these bills without actually getting into what's in the bill that the Conservatives are not supporting, because they always put in some kind of authoritarian little piece in there that'll take away your freedoms, Canada. Right? And of course they don't bring that up in Parliament. But the biggest thing you gotta ask yourself is, how the hell were extortionists dealt with before Liberals came into power? Apparently. They were arrested back then and put in jail and everything was working tickety-boo, but then along comes the Liberals and all of a sudden you can't arrest. You can't arrest extortionists anymore. Now you need new laws. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's because you passed laws before that, since you came into power, that has allowed the courts just to release every bloody criminal that comes through its courts, including the extortionists. No. You guys put in this legislation that is allowing them out, and now you're trying to catch up by saying, oh, let us put in this other bill that has this sneaky authoritarian stuff in it, but you're not letting us be authoritarians. You're evil. Yeah. I wish more people would pay attention to the bills that are actually passing.
The Honourable Member for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, CTV just reported an extortion-related shooting in Abbotsford. In BC, entire communities are living in fear as extortion has exploded nearly 500%. This is unacceptable and an indictment on this soft-on-crime, hug-a-thug Liberal government.
That's right.
Conservatives are providing solutions. The Liberals are silent. Just this morning, our Conservative leader requested emergency debate on extortion. The Liberals shot it down. When will the Liberals take this seriously? seriously and not give empty platitudes.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, just because my colleague doesn't read the legislation the government puts on the floor of the House of Commons doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I would invite him to read Bill C-14, the Bail and Sentencing Act, which makes it difficult for people who are charged with violent extortion to be released on bail. I invite him to read Bill C-2, the Strong Borders Act, which gives tools around lawful access to law enforcement to actually catch the guys who would commit extortion before it impacts people in his communities. If he wants to reduce the temperature in this House, work across partisan lines, there is something he can do. He can vote for these bills to crack down on extortion, or he can continue to make partisan hay out of it.
The Honourable Member for Mont-Saint-Bruno-L'Acadie. Mr. Speaker, as a young person who has benefited from a summer job, I know how important Canada Summer Jobs is to skill acquisition, and it helps young people to start their careers off to a good start. The Honourable Secretary of State. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member for Mont-Saint-Bruno is an excellent example of how Canada Summer Jobs helps young people to succeed. It supports well-paid seasonal jobs that allows young people to gain skills and workforce experience. Next summer, we'll be supporting approximately 100,000 summer jobs for young people, and together we'll be supporting more than 75,000 jobs, and we'll be building a strong Canada.
Member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, extortion is up 330% across Canada since 2015. This is a national crisis. Yet again, the Liberals refused an emergency debate. In Peel, police charged a man in two shootings in Brampton and Caledon linked to organized crime. Extortion cases are skyrocketing. Communities are afraid. Families are worried. Businesses are being targeted. Conservatives have a plan to stop this surge. When will the Liberals finally act and support our Conservative plan to crack down on Canada's rampant extortion crisis?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, what is the Conservative plan? We heard it in the House earlier today. It's to stall our legislation, Mr. Speaker. We've brought C2, we've brought C12 and C14, all measures that will help in these types of crimes, Mr. Speaker. It'll give them tougher sentences. It'll make it harder for them to get bail. But they don't want to support real solutions, Mr. Speaker. They just want to delay, they want to cut, and they want to fundraise for their own personal means, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Last year, this Parliament passed legislation to deliver diabetes and contraceptive medications to every Canadian through our public health care system. This is vital to millions of people's health and the foundation of universal pharmacare. Liberals promised Canadians in Budget 2025 they would protect pharmacare, but they didn't allocate any money to it. No. Will the Prime Minister clearly confirm that he will keep his word and make funding available to every province and territory who wants to sign a pharmacare agreement with the federal government?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Speaker, I want to thank the member of the opposition for his question.
There is a lot of noise in the chamber, and I would ask the member to start her answer again, please. From the top.
I can. So our government will always protect Canada's healthcare system, including pharmacare and dental care. These are clear commitments, and we will keep them. I am having conversation with all provinces and territories to see how we can best support them to strengthen our healthcare system, including on pharmacare. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Nunavut.
The Inuit rely on hunting and trapping in a harsh environment. Nunavut is vast with over 45,000 kilometers of coastline with no search and rescue base. When Nunavut are in trouble, they must wait for help from Halifax over 2,000 kilometers away. Nunavut needs a centrally located search and rescue in Sanagayak. Will this government do that or continue to keep Inuit at risk of losing their lives while they are out on the...
That's not accurate. I worked in search and rescue right here at 8-Wing. And yes, of course, that is their main dispatch area. But that really all depends on available resources because, whether you know it or not, Trenton, Ontario is the holding base for Alert. Alert actually runs out of 8-Wing Trenton. They're supported by 8-Wing Trenton. And I'm pretty sure none of it is along the way. And the Hercs that they use here, they are now using C-130J Hercules over at the 44 Search and Rescue Squadron, and they have this whole area to cover between the East Coast and Winnipeg. And if you look at the corridor going all the way up, guess what? And it goes past that area, past James Bay, right into the Nunavut area.
Northern and Arctic Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Budget 2025 makes historic investments with the new $1 billion Arctic Infrastructure Fund. This is designed to strengthen airports, seaports, and all-season roads, which are critical lifelines for search and rescue. By improving northern transportation and communications infrastructure, the budget directly enhances the safety of the North. It's ensuring faster response times and better coordination when emergencies occur on land, sea, or ice. So these are the investments that reflect our commitment to equity, reconciliation, and protecting the lives in Canada's North.
Hear, hear.
Before we proceed, I would just like to mention that it is not permitted to take pictures in the House. I didn't see any of that going on today, but yesterday I saw members and others saw members taking pictures with their phones. So I just want to make that point. Pardon? Well, anyways. Okay, Mr. Champagne, seconded by... No.
Oh, no. Orders of the day. Okay.
Orders of the day.
Ordre du jour, ordre du gouvernement, voies et moyens.
Government orders, ways and means. Motion number 6.
Let's go to a standby. There we go, talking head shot. So many things that they continually repeat that are lies, the Liberals do, that are lies in Parliament. Every time they're asked a question about why Canadians are starving and you're printing money, like drunken sailor on meth, spending to no avail everywhere you go just because it's not your money, your answer is we're providing free lunches at school. And you voted against our stuff, so you're bad. That's pretty well their answer every time. And I'm surprised that none of the Conservatives on the side have actually responded by saying, yeah, you gave a raise to the CAF, to the Canadian Armed Forces, of $2 billion, but you cut $4.2 billion to veterans. Well, let's end off with our outro, which I believe we put in one of our ORNAP supplements from last week. And we will see you back here tomorrow, 45 minutes prior to question period on the NAP. See you next time. Thanks for coming out. Bye-bye.
Actually, some dystoper. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government is the most expensive in Canadian history. The more they spend, the more things cross. Their so-called generational budget is nothing more than generational debt, mortgaging away our children's future. Massive Liberal deficits feed inflation. Inflation fuels unaffordability. Our seniors can barely buy groceries. Our families are stretched thin, and our workers are falling behind. Yet this Prime Minister, he still wants them to make more sacrifices. Can the Prime Minister tell us what more is left for Canadians to sacrifice?
The Honourable Governor. House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this morning brings outstanding news of tens of thousands, in fact 69,000 new jobs in Canada.
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this morning brings outstanding news of tens of thousands, in fact 69,000 new jobs in Canada. The second straight month of employment growth in this country. What's happening, as the Minister of Natural Resources informed us yesterday, is investors are piling into Canada. They're expressing confidence in our country. The entrepreneurs, the tech sector, young people are getting energized about this positive economic momentum. We're going to keep it going with this budget. I hope the Conservatives support us in it.
This Brookfield budget has the largest deficit in history outside of COVID. The interest payments are topping $55 billion, more than what we spent on healthcare transfers. This means less for doctors, less for nurses, less for our hospitals, but more for bondholders and Liberal insiders. The only thing that's getting healthy under this government are the bankers' profits. They keep getting rich while Canadians foot the price. So can the Prime Minister tell us why he is so hell-bent on making sure his banker buddies get rich while Canadians suffer?
I think it's worth repeating. The economy has added 67,000 new jobs, Mr. Speaker. 67! Even the Conservatives are happy this morning on a Friday, Mr. Speaker. Look at their face. They are smiling because they're going back home and they have good news, not only in the budget, Mr. Speaker. There's hundreds of pages of good news, but this morning they can say that the plan of the government will build Canada strong because what, Mr. Speaker? We believe in Canada.
Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Only a bunch of Liberals would stand up and applaud an unemployment rate of 7% when the United States unemployment rate is 4.2%. This is the most expensive government in Canadian history. In 10 years, they doubled the debt. And now they're going to pile on another $78 billion. Meanwhile, 2.2 million Canadians are going to the food bank. The softwood lumber industry is being devastated. The auto industry is being devastated. Is there a Liberal over there that can stand up and explain how they've spent so much money to accomplish so little?
67,000. That's how many new jobs were created last month. 20,000 of these jobs were for young Canadians. A clear sign that our plan is working. In Canada, 1 in 5 jobs are related to trade. From small businesses to major exporters, Canadians are driving growth and creating opportunities. In Budget 2025, we have a plan to support our entrepreneurs, our workers, our exporters as we build the strongest economy in the G7. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Once again, how do they stand up and applaud an unemployment rate of 7% when the United States unemployment rate is 4.2%? It's actually like we're living in some kind of dystopian universe where they do this. The facts are this. A softwood lumber industry is being hollowed out. 2.2 million Canadians are using the food bank. The auto industry is on its knees, and they stand and applaud a 7.1% unemployment rate. They have spent more money than all governments combined in the history of Canada. How can they applaud when they've spent so much to actually accomplish so little?
Here's something to applaud about. We created 67,000 new jobs last month. That's right. Mr. Speaker, this is about building an affordable nation for a nation of builders. This budget does just that. We are building affordable housing for young people. We are creating 100,000 new summer jobs. And Mr. Speaker, we are investing in the tech sector. 800,000 workers, fastest growing job sector in the economy, many for young people. I hope the Conservatives, and many of them do, support this budget.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have presented the most expensive and deficit-ridden budget in Canada's history outside of the pandemic. Nearly $8 billion in deficit. $80 billion. Mr. Speaker, a deficit means spending money we don't have. A deficit is a bill that we send our children and our grandchildren. A deficit is adding fuel to the inflation fire. Why is this Prime Minister spending more and uncontrolledly without focusing on inflation? I'm proud to inform my colleague that over the past month, the Canadian economy added 67,000 new jobs. Because with their help, if we support the 2025 budget, we will unleash the power of the Canadian economy by building big projects like the containers for the Port of Quebec, and I hope you'll support. Speaker, unfortunately, I'm not proud at all of the figure I'm going to cite. 2.2 million Canadians have to use a food bank. That's the Liberal track record. And of these 2 million, 1 out of 3 are children. We're talking about 700,000 children in Canada that have to use food banks to eat. Mr. Speaker, but I love Canada too much to see this. Why is the government continuing to rack up deficits? We're talking about $80 billion. We know deficits are just debts we're sending to our children, our grandchildren. Canadians deserve better than this. This budget invests in our children. It invests, it requires funds so we can create jobs, so we can renew purchasing power for all Canadians. That's what's important. That's what we're doing. Canadians are hoping for this, and I hope that my colleagues will support this budget, which will give power back to all Canadians.
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future, they know that the youth...
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that, Mr. Speaker.
It's bad that that minister
Prime Minister's speech yesterday is it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears all of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that has built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Canada know that this government has their back. There's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest and telling Canadians.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
Still there? Thanks for hanging out. And if you're still here, please join us Friday mornings as well for Lazy and Cat for Fridays at 9 a.m. And we will just show you that intro. And after that, we'll sign off. See you later. Bye-bye.